All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of the Gero-Juice podcast. I'm your host, Adrianne D. Jones, and I'm super excited to have my guest on the show today. Her name is Miss Deborah Stokes, and she is the executive director for the Georgia Council on Aging. Ms. Stokes comes to us today to give us the 411 on how the Georgia Council on Aging advocates for Georgia seniors. And we're going to talk about some of the important legislative priorities right here in 2025. So, Ms. Stokes, welcome to the Gero-Juice.
I am so honored to be here because this gives me an opportunity to share what we're doing here under the Gold Dome on behalf of the seniors across the state of Georgia. We advocate in order to make sure that policies and funding are appropriately distributed to this aging population.
Wonderful. And I'm going to jump right into it. I want to just to start by sharing with our listeners the main purpose and the mission of the Georgia Council on Aging. Like, what does the council aim to accomplish for Georgia's seniors?
Well, that's an easy question. Our mission is to help improve the lives and well being of all of our Georgia aging population. But we also advocate on behalf of caregivers of those aging citizens. But our role is to represent the needs of our senior population, and that's 60 and older, sometimes 65 and older, depending upon the programs. But we advocate on behalf of their needs to make sure that the funding and the appropriate legislation is in place for all of us seniors. I am in that group
Mhm.
to live a comfortable and healthy and fulfilling life. The council itself is comprised of 20 members. Those members are not state employees. They are appointed volunteers, and they're all people who have extremely good resumes in terms of their experience in the aging population, both from a consumer perspective and from a provider perspective. So we cover the whole range of service options for our seniors. So the council itself is appointed by the governor, the lieutenant governor, the speaker of the House, and the commissioner of the Department of Human Services. That is where the Division of Aging Services is housed.
Okay.
So we are an attached agency to the Department of Human Services, but we kind of stand on our own. Um,
Okay.
so the council created the Coalition of Advocates for Georgia's Elders many,
Okay.
many years ago, and that's called COAGE. Many people
Okay.
know it by that acronym. And COAGE is the meat and potatoes of what we do because COAGE is our membership organization. And
Okay.
so for $10 a year, plug, for $10 a year, anyone
Okay.
who's interested in supporting and advocating on behalf of seniors can join. And each member has an opportunity to vote. They can submit an issue that they feel is relevant to address the needs of that population. And
Okay.
we review those issues, and the entire membership votes on the issues. And
Okay.
the ones that get the majority of the votes are the ones that we take to the legislature every year to
Okay.
advocate on behalf of. I mean, that's pretty quick and yeah, but that's
Okay.
basically.
Okay. That's some great information in a nutshell. And I'm just going to go back just a little bit just to make sure that my listeners and our audience want to make sure that they know that anybody, Georgia seniors, anybody can be a member of COAGE. Is that
There's,
correct?
there's no age limitation to being a co-age member. If you
Wow.
are interested in advocating on behalf of this population, then you are welcome to join COAGE and let your voice be heard. I mean, there's so many people who are support staff for seniors in they work in nursing homes or senior facilities, and
Right.
they want to advocate to help the people that they work with every day, and so they become co-age members. We have
Okay.
organizational members. So we have a structure of membership where organizational members are $100 a year, and you get up to seven individual memberships with an organization. Uh,
Okay.
Senior center membership is $50 a year, and you get five members. And a individual membership, of course, is $10 a year. That's for one membership, but each of those memberships represents a vote.
Okay.
So everybody has the opportunity to vote to
Okay.
help determine what we bring to the Capitol.
Okay, beautifully explained. And thanks for explaining the different tiers and what each tier represents. Now I'm going to ask you something else. So, you know, I'm an advocate, for seniors. I'm here in Georgia. I'm a Georgia advocate for Georgia seniors. But I want to know, in your experience, what are some of the, would you say, best practices for advocating on behalf of Georgia seniors? Now, becoming a member of COAGE, to me, that's one way, but I know there are several other ways that you can share with our audience. How can we just become involved on multiple levels for advocating for policies, I would say, that impact them?
Interestingly enough, what we do is advocacy training. We go out across the state and provide advocacy training to our members and their organizations, and so we have a pretty concise presentation called Advocacy 101, which talks about how best to get involved as an advocate for any issue that you feel is important. And the first thing is to know who your legislators are. So many people, we ask in a room full of people who say, I want to advocate on behalf of this issue. Say, well, who's your legislator? And they'll go, what? Who is your representative? Who is your senator at the state level? Because we're only dealing with state issues here. And they'll say, I don't know. And we'll say the first thing you need to do is you can go to this website called plural.com, put in your address and your zip code, and it will show you who your representative and senator and federal representatives are. So you need to know who your legislators are. And I'm talking advocacy for policy and funding at the state level. So this also applies at the federal level. But first of all, you need to know, who do you need to go and advocate in front of?
Right.
So find out who your legislators are. Then the next step is to engage with them. You see these people in the grocery store, at church. You elected them. And even if you didn't vote for them, they were elected to serve you in this district. So you see them all the time. Talk to them. Ask them, here's something that concerns me. And they'll say, well, tell me about it, or whatever. But you really have the opportunity on a personal level to ask questions of the people that you send here to represent you. So I would say that the Advocacy 101, get to know your legislators and get to know them in the community that they serve. Because by the time they get here to the legislature, they're very, very busy. They have a lot of people vying for their attention. But when they're sitting at church, standing in the parking lot, you have an open forum to say, I have this concern. Tell me how I can go about getting this issue addressed. Now, one of the things about COAGE is that our issues, we have some criteria that must be met. And one of them is that it has to be a statewide issue. We cannot advocate on behalf of a particular city or community or region, not as a COAGE priority. It has to be a statewide issue that can be addressed through policy or funding. But that's the first step in advocacy. And I was speaking to a group of young people not long ago, and they said, yeah, but I just have this one idea and this one concern and this one voice. Well, join voices with other people who have that same idea or issue or concern. That's the power of advocacy in numbers. And that's why we encourage people to join COAGE, because we are a like-minded group and we are working toward the same goals. So advocacy is letting your voice be heard,
Right. Thank you. And while we're talking about, pertinent issues amongst our seniors. I know, for a fact I've participated in Senior Day at the Capitol, and I know that last week was Senior Day at the Capitol, last Tuesday. I'm so sorry that I couldn't make it. I was hurt by that actually, because I know when I have fun, whether it's the Capitol, a senior center, a line dance, it doesn't matter what it is. I always have fun with my seniors. But more importantly, I do want to know, what are some of the current legislative priorities that the Georgia Council on Aging and CoAge are focusing on this year? Like, and how will these priorities benefit older adults in Georgia?
One of our primary priorities this year is to get funding to establish a multidisciplinary teams coordinator to cover elder abuse and exploitation. This is on the very legal side of it. There are MDTs, multidisciplinary teams, that already exist in the judicial circuits to help prosecute people who engage in child molestation or child trafficking. And so MDTs are not a new concept. It's just a group of professionals who all work they all work together to accomplish the same goal, and that is the prosecution of perpetrators who perpetrate these crimes. So in elder abuse, elder disabled abuse and exploitation, we want to establish a multidisciplinary teams coordinator who will manage the MDTs that exist in the state already. So there are 5 MDTs for elder abuse and exploitation in the state. And there are 50 judicial circuits in the state, but only 5 have established MDTs to handle this particular area of the law. And we want there to be more support, more emphasis on the need to help make it easier to end that horrible abuse, to prosecute people who are engaged in this abusive activity. So that's one. And that has been a CoAge priority for 2 years. One of the things to know about advocacy is that things don't always happen quickly, but you have to stay with it. We have our primary perennial ask, budget priority is for $2.5 million in funding for home and community-based services. This is non-Medicaid home and community-based services. These are the funds that the state kicks in to take care of individuals who need and qualify for home and community-based services. Those are services like Meals on Wheels, adaptive appliances, caregiver respite, homemaker services, those kinds of services that will ultimately help people live at home and therefore live longer. So that's an ask that we take to the legislature every year. Last year we only received an additional $550,000. 2 years ago we received $5.2 million. So we just keep asking, and we keep trying to figure out a way to explain and show how critical this is for this population to be able to age at home, and how fiscally responsible it is for the state, because it costs much less to provide home services than it does to pay for a nursing home bed.
Right.
So those are 2 of the things we advocate for. We are also looking into requesting a study committee to look at medical aid in dying. That is an issue that many people are not educated about. And most of the time when we say medical aid in dying, people say assisted suicide, that's bad, we don't want that. Well, that's not the definition of medical aid in dying. Whether you agree with the concept or disagree with the concept, it is an issue that was brought to CoAge by a large number of advocates, and they voted to have this be one of our priorities, and therefore we are pursuing it. Now, different aspects of requesting changes in laws and policy take different approaches, different strategies. So once we determine, hey, people are going to have a negative response to that initially, let's educate people on what it is first and what it isn't. And then we'll move to the next level. So we're asking for a study committee to help the legislators understand what medical aid in dying is. Let's see, our other priorities, we are hoping to ask for funding to put a study committee together, not a study committee, but to engage a consultant to do a study on the opportunity to accept Medicaid in assisted living facilities. Right now,
That's
Medicaid
big.
is legally, you can't legally accept Medicaid in an assisted living facility.
Correct.
And so some of the providers were concerned that we were trying to make them take Medicaid, but that's not it. We just want to allow them to accept it if they choose to, because it can be an important alternative for people who run out of funds. And, if they could tap into their Medicaid funds, they would be able to stay in this facility longer or make some additional arrangements. But that's also requesting a study of that to see how viable it would be for the state
That's big.
The assisted living population.
That's big. That's huge. I see a number of people in the community when I'm doing my work, and even from years ago, that may be assisted living appropriate, but they cannot afford it. They have Medicaid, and the assisted living community does not take Medicaid. So I'm going to stay on top of that and be bugging you, emailing you for some updates on that, because I think that's very, very important. And just, looking at the different challenges and everything that comes along when you're advocating for a vulnerable population. I know that sometimes it can hit you head on, like you're a deer in headlights. Sometimes you're expecting it, but I want to ask you to share with us any challenges you see when it comes to addressing the needs of Georgia seniors or Georgia's aging population. And what does the council do? How do you overcome those challenges?
Fortunately, we have a strong council with a broad range of experience, training, expertise, passion for the work that we do. So it's very comforting to know that you have this group of people who have been there, done that in terms of addressing the needs of this population. Overcoming the challenges, it takes tenacity, and it takes a level of patience, and it just takes the desire to educate people about things that they may, just like the medical aid in dying, things that they may not know. Like many people don't know that the aging population represents 15% of the state's population. And that number is growing rapidly because of us baby boomers. We're a big group. And so that, I'm doing a presentation in 30 minutes or so to ask for funding, because as a council and as the staff of the council, we work for 1,540,440 individuals. Those are people in Georgia who are 65 or older. That's who we work for. The legislators work for the entire state, but basically they're focused on the constituents who elected them to office, right? But our responsibility covers everybody in Georgia who's 65 or older. So, that is a bit of a challenge. An interesting challenge is that I'm not going to diss any millennials, or I'm not going to diss you, but young people don't think they're going to get old. It doesn't hit them that when you're talking about laws and funding and budgets and policy, these are issues that you want to be in place for you,
right,
when you need them. But aside from that, your parents, your grandparents, and it as in anything, it requires a personal perspective. to
Right.
say, wait a minute, it's not just about this. It's about me, and it's about my mom,
Mhm.
and it's about my grandmother, and it's about my Gigi and my Nana.
Mhm.
So when 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 we are faced with having to overcome that mindset, we're not a culture, we're not a country culturally who puts a whole lot of emphasis on the aging or a whole lot of
Mhm.
respect on the aging. And that's just
Right.
that's a constant thing to have to overcome. We have to overcome ageism within our own organizations. I
Mhm.
want to change the name of COAGE to the Coalition of Advocates for Georgia's Elders, not
Mhm.
elderly. Elderly
Yeah.
have a very frail, feeble, negative connotation.
Yes.
So
Connotation.
keeping up with ageism, how we speak about the elderly, I just did it. So it's
It's okay.
constant. It's a constant challenge, I think, to make
Yeah.
sure that you incorporate all of those things as we advocate for the population.
Right. That you spoke a mouthful when you said that you have challenges at so many different levels in society, on the macro level, on the societal level, changing verbiage and, like you said, not using elderly because it has a connotation of, frail and incapable, but using words that are more socially acceptable and don't make you feel old. I know I'm gonna get, I want to get old, I want to age successfully. I look forward to it. The positive side of things, I try to close my ears to the other part, but I look forward to it over here. And this leads me into my last question for our time together. Looking ahead, Ms. Stokes, looking ahead, what changes or improvements do you hope to see in the coming years for Georgia seniors? And tell us, tell my audience, how can we contribute to making some of those changes a reality?
Oh wow, that's a big question. I, I hope to see um, a shift in the significance and the importance and the value of our aging citizens. I really hope to see a resurgence of what used to be a value placed on that wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it can happen. And I'm not sure how it will happen, but I hope to see that because I would say politically, I'd like to see Medicaid expansion to be able to provide more, but that's a political thing, and I don't get to get into that. But I'd like to see more emphasis on providing adequate and appropriate services for seniors. We're not aging like we used to. We are not sitting in rocking chairs on porches,
No,
just waiting to die.
no.
This population, particularly the baby boomers who are
Mm-hmm.
coming into that 65 and older
Mm-hmm.
category, are active and want to remain active. And I think that uh, if we put more emphasis on health and wellness,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that would make it a whole lot easier for people to age well. And don't get me started on mental health. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
our seniors experience a lot of mental health challenges, and it's not the sort of thing that you grow out of. Like if you have uh, juvenile diabetes, the older you get, the better it gets. If you
Mm-hmm.
have uh, schizophrenia or some other mental illness, it doesn't necessarily improve as you get old. It just morphs into something else. So I think that more emphasis on um, the mental health. And COVID taught us a lot of things, but one of the things it taught us is that isolation is a bad thing.
Yeah.
That not that we didn't know it before, but it demonstrated
Mm-hmm.
so clearly that isolation impacts our older population in ways that it doesn't impact younger people's age groups.
Right.
So I don't know. Did I answer your question,
You
Adrianne?
did. You
Oh,
did. You did. the mental health part speaks volumes. But just being hopeful for change all the way around, from the entire life spectrum, from childhood all the way into adulthood. You spoke to that, saying that, hey, like we can cover the entire adult, from childhood, until they are playing bingo, not in the rocking chair, but until they playing bingo, line dancing, whatever the case may be. Right. And I'm going to end here by asking you, how can our audience connect with the Georgia Council on Aging and also co-age? Oh, I lost your sound again. I don't know where it's gone. There it goes.
Are you back? Am I back?
Yes, you are back.
Wow. We are on all social media outlets,
Okay.
but our website is gcoa.org, or
Okay.
Georgia Council on Aging.org. And we're on all social media. Uh,
Okay.
and the you know my contact information you have if you want to give it to your audience, but uh, we're easy to find. We are easy to find. And
Okay.
I do want to say one particular thing for you, and I love telling this story. I
Okay.
aged into this job. I took this job when I was 65.
Wow.
So, you know, growing older is a benefit. It's a beautiful thing. So I just want to say that's I think that's one way we can actually identify people who can help with these workforce shortages that we're experiencing. You know, get those mature people who still have the knowledge and the desire and the patience to come into the workforce and get the work done without a whole lot of fluff. They know how
Wow.
to work, they get it done, and they move on. So I think we need to tap into our older adults in terms of addressing the needs for the workforce in every area.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Ms. Stokes, for this interview. I'm so elated. I'm so appreciative of you. I know my audience is, of all the information that you provided here today. Listen, I know you have a presentation to get to. So you are listen, go, be great. We are in full support of you here on the Gero-Juice podcast. And to all of you out there, my Gero-Juice podcast family, thank you for tuning in to this special interview. You can catch me on YouTube. You can catch the Gero-Juice podcast on Facebook. Listen, new episodes drop every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 3 p.m. But also, I want you to remember to tune in to the Gero-Juice radio show every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. on Atlanta's legendary 1570 AM and WIGO1570.com. Until next time, I love you all and stay safe.